In our studios in Washington, D.C., is with us Graham Robb, who is an historian and the author of the book The Discovery of Middle Earth. And I, I have not read the entire book, but I have read pieces of it. I've read about it, and this seemed so profoundly fascinating to me that I wanted to get him on. Graham, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Middle Earth, what is it?
Middle Earth is not just the land inhabited by hobbits. It's a concept that's common to several mythologies, including Celtic mythology, also Norse mythology, which Tolkien used for The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. And I thought, since I studied and taught at Tolkien's College in Oxford, I should be the one to recover that idea for Celtic mythology, which is where it came from. The idea is that the Earth we live on is the Middle Earth. There's also the Earth underneath, the underworld, and the upper world, the heavens, the sky above us. Mm-hmm. So that's why Middle Earth. It's originally the Celtic concept, which Tolkien knew when he used it and adapted it for his own fantasy world.
So tell us the story of the Celts.
The story of the Celts. Well, how many years do we have?
Or actually, the story of the discovery of Middle Earth. My understanding is that this is were the Celts smarter than we thought, basically? But
they were a lot more sophisticated than we thought, and the problem is that we have adopted the Roman view of the Celts. And the Romans wanted to make the Celts look ridiculous because they were afraid of them. The Celts, this is something that's often forgotten, had conquered Rome.
If I may, my recollection is that roughly 3,000 years ago, the Celts conquered Europe and organized it for trading, let people keep their religions and their languages by and large. Then 2,000 years ago, the Romans conquered Europe and let people keep their religions but not their languages by and large. And then 1,000 years ago, basically, the Catholics conquered Europe and wiped out all the old religions. Is that a thumbnail history? Is there any accuracy to that?
Yes, there is, because the Romans certainly conquered most of what's now Europe. But the Celts did have wars of conquest, but the Celts were a huge group of very diverse tribes. There's no Celtic DNA. There was never a single group who were known as the Celts. Celt was simply the word that was applied to most of the inhabitants of Western Europe. And when we talk about the Celts, we're talking about people who had a similar religion, similar language, and similar art, which we still recognize as Celtic art.
Now, is that language the language that has been revived in Ireland?
Yeah, it's Irish, Gaelic, and Gallic, and other Celtic languages. Breton are directly related to ancient Celtic.
What's the root language for Celtic? For the Celtic language?
Well, there was a language known as Continental Celtic, which mysteriously died out in about the 6th century AD. And we know very few phrases of it. In fact, almost the only complete sentence of ancient Continental Celtic that we know is Nata Rimpi Kurmi Da, which means pretty girl, give me some beer.
The perfect one to remember.
Which is interesting, because it shows that even relatively uneducated people who drank beer instead of wine were literate, because it's often said that the Celts were illiterate, and clearly they weren't. They could read and write.
Right. And my understanding, my recollection is, and again, I apologize for not having read your book before this interview. I tried not to do that, but that the Celts were principally interested in organizing trade as opposed to building empire like the Romans did. Does that make sense?
Yes, they had. You could call it Celtic Empire, but it's spread by dissemination rather than conquest. And it's not such an unusual pattern in the ancient world, but it is a lot easier if you're teaching history just to say that one people conquered another. And the most interesting case is Ireland, because archaeologists have shown that no large group settled in Ireland or conquered it in the Celtic period, and yet the people living in Ireland became Celtic. So the question is not where did they come from and who did they beat, but when did Ireland or Britain or France become Celtic?
And when did that happen? It
round
preceded the
about-
Romans.
Yes, a long time before the Romans, before there was the Roman Empire. I mean, Rome was just a little settlement on the Tiber.
Right.
Round about 800 BC, certainly by 600 BC, there were tribes living in very different parts of Europe who had what we now recognise as Celtic art.
Are you familiar with the Whig histories and Thomas Jefferson's thoughts on them and debates
Not very
with David
familiar, no.
Hume? David Hume, rather. Okay. Because the Whig histories were very popular in the 1770s, and David Hume was trashing them, of course, and Thomas Jefferson was in love with them, and they were all about the tribal people of England, before basically the Norman invasion and the Roman, actually before the Roman invasion, but we're digressing. So what is the most remarkable thing about the Celts that you would like to share with us today?
I think the most remarkable thing is the extent to which they had the same science and technology and capabilities as the ancient Greeks. And it was the Greeks that the Celts were most in contact with. The Greeks colonized Mediterranean France, Gaul, and started dividing the territory up into grids covering many hundreds of square miles. And this is the basis of the invention that the book describes, which on the surface seems implausible, but actually is not unprecedented.
And that
in the
invention
ancient world.
is?
The creation of sun lines. I know this sounds very implausible, several hundred miles long, which they used not just to organize their tribal territories, but also to organize their migrations and their military campaigns.
Well, isn't this one of the arguments that that's what Stonehenge is?
Yes, exactly, but on a much smaller scale, just on a local scale. And one reason the Celts seem to have disappeared, although they haven't disappeared for archaeologists, is that they didn't tend to build in stone. These were the henges of the New Age. They were built by mind instead of muscle. They were ideal lines, like survey lines on which roads were based, because they also had long-distance roads.
Right. And in the last minute we have here, we're talking with Graham Robb, the author of The Discovery of Middle Earth, which is really the story of the Celts. Did they get their science from the Greeks? Did the Greeks get it from them? Where did the Celts come from?
Well, the Celts traded with the Greeks. The Greeks set up colonies along the Mediterranean. And we know that the intellectuals of the Celts, who were called Druids, who weren't just priests, had a 20-year-long education system, and that's how that Greek knowledge penetrated the Celtic world.
Remarkable. Graham Robb, his book, The Discovery of Middle Earth. It's out now from www.norton.com. You can find it over there. And extraordinary. Graham, thanks so much for dropping by.
Thanks very much. It was a pleasure.
Very, very good talking to you. We'll be back. It's 15 minutes past the hour.